Imagine. Imagine and think. Let's do a brainstorm. Okay? How was education or how was creative thinking pattern during the 20th century? What was students' intrinsic motivation? What was more important? Was it the learning? Was it engagement? Or it was just like receiving good grades? Didn't we compete with our nerdy classmates? Oh, you got an 85, but I got an 80, but we wrote the same answers. Okay, so if we look back to the book written by Jessica Lahey, The Gift of Failure, there was a quotation. The quotation was, "We are conditioning kids nowadays to sacrifice the love of learning at the altar of achievement." I particularly picked up this quotation. The reason is because I want you to think, or I want myself to think, that how important is it to make students realize the importance of achievement? Is it the importance of achievement? Is it creative thinking? Or is it getting good grades? Let's just close our eyes and think. Let's think and think aloud. Take, for instance, examples of famous personalities like Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs as well, even Charles Dickens. There are few people, those who did not complete their education or they didn't follow the same cliche pattern of getting good grades, but they were more into creativity. Thomas Edison was a dropout. Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, they notoriously never earned a degree. Yeah, we all know these famous people, right? Why are they famous today? Why are they so famous and that every person on this earth existing knew about them? That's because they were creative at that point of time. Thus, this makes us to think and think aloud about this topic, that how important it is to creatively think in the 21st century and imbibe this kind of potential into the students, to make them aware that rather than focusing on good grades or rather than just being rote learners to provide a good script during your HSC exam, what is more important is it to be creative, which will enhance your life during the long run, and that will actually empower you to be a successful person. Does that make sense? Hello, my dear listeners. Today, my episode would be exploring on the creativity and innovation in the 21st century. And today, my title for this podcast is Unlocking Your Creative Self. I'm your host, Miss Ruchira, and in this podcast, we will get insights on how we rethink and redesign education in this current era. And I'd be very keen to integrate the Think Aloud concept, which is an extremely effective instructional tool. This instructional tool dates back to 1900 when William Wundt founded the first psychology lab and named this as the introspection. Later, Carl Duncan also described this process as the Think Aloud methodology, where he asked his participants to solve problems by actually discussing them verbally. In 1993, we come across the publication by Erickson and Simon that was titled as Protocol Analysis Verbal Reports Data. When I come across the word creative thinking, the first thing that strikes my mind is Sir Ken Robinson's definition on creativity, which he described as the process of having original ideas that have value. Now, if one looks on the TED Talks by Sir Ken Robinson's, which was published 16 years ago and has more than 22 million views on the topic, "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" we see that he discussed that every educational system on earth has the same hierarchy of subjects, where the hierarchy starts with the prior subjects, which are usually maths, English, languages, followed by humanities, and mostly the arts are always at the bottom. He also made us think about the question why and why not. Dance is not taught every day in schools, but maths is. So, somehow we come to the conclusion that our education system is predicted on the idea of academic capability, and this all came into existence to meet the needs of industrialization. Now, let's take a pause and revisit our childhood during our school days when we were so much engrossed into maybe different kind of hobbies. It can be dancing, singing, or art. And we had some people also commenting their own point of view on our arts, right? So we had people commenting like, why are you investing so much time in dance when you're not going to be a dancer? Or why are you so much into art? Why don't you please study so that you can pass your HSC examination? So we definitely had comments like that because people's point of view were like, when you're growing up, you are going to be someone professional, maybe working in the finance company or maybe into IT sector or maybe as a teacher or professor. But have you thought that creative people like Michael Jackson, Lady Gaga, Madonna, Rihanna have actually rocked the world, have shaken the world with their creativity, and we are actually going crazy about their creation, their way of life, their art. So, if we think deep about this point, that how much important creativity is and creative thinking is, that is a motivation. And in this 21st century, I believe every individual should have this creative idea within themselves and they should work on that. Talking or elaborating more on this notion, creative thinking in the 21st century, I want to shed light on one of the most interesting articles on creative thinking, which is being developed by Dr. Kim Wilson and Dr. Janet Dutton, who are currently the researchers at the Macquarie University, as well as the unit conveyor of different units that are being provided at the university. So, the article is on making space in our schools for children to develop their creativity. And something that is really fascinating, that I must say, that they discuss about something called the third space. And it's like something a bubble where students will enter into the bubble and they will be playing with their ideas, they'll be forming some groups, they'll be progressing with nothing tangible to show. So, I want to pick up on this concept of the third space where students will be entering and having a brainstorming of ideas and plays and different notions, but making sure that teachers do play a very essential role into it, because it is the teacher who is guiding the students, instructing them, creating some boundaries and some topics that should be followed, some goals, and the learning outcomes that are very essential. Now, focusing on creative thinking for the 21st century, I would say that there are a lot of organizations, ACARA, the AITSL, reports from the World Economic Forum, as well as the Melbourne Declaration on Educational Goals for Young Australians. Everyone is now focusing these days into nurturing and developing the experimental disposition in the students. And most importantly, being a teacher education students, when I see how OECD is fostering and assessing students creativity skills and highlighting on cultivating the skills within the students before they pass their HSC or they are just ready for employment, as well as how Australian curriculum has developed the 7 general capabilities that focus on critical thinking, literacy, numeracy, and ethical understanding, and everything that is a part of the curriculum. I feel very motivated to think on this concept that everything is actually developing students not to be nerds but to be smarter in future, so to work as if they are absolutely ready to face the world, they are ready to take up responsibilities if they want to work in any company or just they want to set up their own startup. Last but not the least, before concluding my podcast today, I want to just assemble all the points and the main concept of why this podcast is about enriching thinking. I just want to do a rapid think aloud on planning the lesson plans for my students. Definitely in this generation, there are so many resource tools, like I came across so many apps like Look at, Quizlet, then there is Edrulo Education Perfect. There is personalized learning, blended learning, flexibility. There is the inquiry based, Jigsaw. These are all the literacy as well as the financial skills. So maybe when I'll be doing a commerce lesson plan, I'll be focusing more on inquiry based topic, even how to file a tax or what are the essential components that employers look into employees, how to be smart workers. So, to conclude, the bottom line is that to create students' engagement and increase intellectual growth. And the funniest part about this podcast today is that while I was doing the think aloud concept, I can just recapitulate how universities are designing these days the courses. Like, it's more into group work, it's more podcasting, it's educational, how you are using the educational tool, how you are designing, and how you are implementing your learning, rather than just being summative assessment, like just going to exam hall and giving examination. I believe that learning or creative thinking in the 21st century is emerging as one of the greatest and one of the strongest tools, which will enhance students and will give them the potential to be their own self, to be the authentic one, to be you, or yes, that's me. So here I end my podcast for today. Thank you everyone for listening. I'll again get back to you with another episode on creative thinking. Thank you so much.